All right, it's another episode of Rise Up with Marc Mixon. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Mark.
It is one of our more rare afternoon recordings and live streams. Welcome to the people out there who clicking through on the YouTube and or Rumble. Are those the only two platforms? We live elsewhere. Is it those two?
No, that's it for now. Yeah.
All right.
Facebook needed us to have more followers on there, like I think 100 or something. I don't know.
Do we even have a Facebook account?
Yeah, not sure.
Okay. We'll have to look into that whole social media thing again at some point. I know that when we started this a year and a half ago, we made a bunch of stuff, but just being Adam and I, and neither of us are on social media. We don't.
Right.
We don't
The
really do
Incel
it.
King took over X and or Twitter, and
Yeah.
things have changed. I've never been a big fan of Facebook.
Right, and now that he has purchased and stolen an election, and is the unelected president, while Trump is the world's wealthiest figurehead, I guess at this point, and Elon, the world's saddest edgelord, is oh boy. Okay, so
he just sold X to his AI company. So if any AI is going to be trained to kill us all, it's going to be the AI that trained off of the things that are found on X. that should go very well.
Yeah, no, it's everything is looking very dark, very sad, very rough. And it has been for a while, even when the warmongering, do-nothing Democrats were in office. In the national scheme of things were still very dark. They only cater to the wealthy and the billionaire class, and they care about the moneyed interests, not us. Which is one of the reasons we started this podcast. One of the reasons I started my organizing and activism work, my political work. One of the reasons we everyday people need to find a way to rise up. Adam, you and I had a long discussion, and I think we did a podcast about whether or not the path forward is direct action or electoralism, and that's still a hot topic of debate, at least in some of my circles. And as you know, my answer is both, right? We need to work boots on the ground, direct action to generate the power we need for change. But then once we've generated some power, we need to elect people who are going to enact that shit into law, and who are going to be there and continue the fight that we have been doing on the ground, and make policy that will preserve the power we've generated. Which is one of the reason we have so many candidates on this podcast, which would have been such a great segue if I had done the self-promotion part.
It's okay.
So before we get to that segue, go ahead and like and subscribe. Share this podcast. Share it with your friends. Rate it highly, however that stuff happens. Follow us on the social medias that may or may not exist, as I've indicated out there. And mostly, reach out and get involved. If you're doing some work that needs platforming, contact us. Let us know. I've had a lot of listeners now who have reached out and pitched episodes, and we've done a few of those episodes so far, and I've got another couple of those lined up. So love to know what you want to hear about, and then we'll do an episode about it. And if you are an activist or an organizer who is doing the hard work to help us all seek liberation and improve our lives, then I want to platform you. So if you're watching the video, riseupwmark@gmail is the email address. We do read those emails. We do respond to those emails. So hit us up. Okay. So this will be the first of our candidate episodes this off election year, this odd year election season, which is all about local elections. And most of this podcast, not all, we've had some non-local candidates and even some larger federal candidates on the podcast. But this year will be pretty local focused because local races are what's happening. And so our first guest of the off-year election season is going to be Rye Armstrong, who's a local organizer and politician. I don't think Rye's not been elected yet, but they ran for city council a few years ago anyway. I'm a Green Party member, and I came across their announcement in a sort of Green Party internal communication platform and reached out to Rye, see if they wanted to join us. So let's go ahead and do our transition music.
And actually, I was gonna. This is all live. We're on live stream. Let's try to just click over to the scene that we have saved, where we can just bring Riot directly on.
Oh, we're gonna skip the transition.
Let's try to skip the transition. Let's see what happens.
All right, let's try this new. All right,
it's all on me if it doesn't work. All right,
let's welcome Rye Armstrong to the podcast. Then
here he comes.
All right, that worked. Look at that. We got Rye.
It's magic.
It's magic. We don't have Barry's music, but that's all right.
It's at the end of every episode, so
that's true. There you go.
Yep.
Interesting. And I'm trying a pop out thing to put Rye's image up there by my camera, but it's not. I mean, you're up there, but you're all grayed out. That's all right. Maybe I'll move you back. Oh, like magic. I said a thing. I touched my keyboard. You're back. Rye. Sorry for the awkwardness. This is the live stream version. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you joined us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Oh, I just can't put my little mouse on your face. That's the issue. There we go. So you're running for Rye Armstrong, running for mayor of Seattle. And I'm not wrong. You did run for city council previously, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I ran for city council a couple years ago over in District 3, which was historically held by Shama Sawant for about a decade. And then after losing that primary election, I went on to get elected to my union's national council. So I now am elected as a Western principal counselor on that national union, which is chaired by President Brooke Shields, if you know her. She's pretty great. And so, yeah, we represent 50,000 stage and arts workers nationwide on a $75 million budget. So, and then from there, I felt this fire in my belly to fight back in 2025. I just felt queer and trans people being attacked and or erased. And I felt like I should do something about it. And what better way than to elect a queer trans person to the mayoral race in Seattle to give a good middle finger up to Donald Trump. So Seattle's always been the place for queer people to be safe and be at home. Despite a trans person being attacked yesterday, there was a hate crime in the U district, and then historic gay bars. Pony Bar was also attacked with pellet guns and some slurs. So I think we need a mayor who's going to have the kind of town halls and listen to the people and fight back. And so that's what I'm here to do.
Wow. Okay. You've dropped. I am so disconnected from the news these days because I get very upset and very depressed, and I'm very easy to incite. And it is, I use this word, I think, intentionally. It's fucking triggering out there right now. It is rough. So you've dropped a lot of things on me. I want to follow up with as many of them as I can remember. That was a great intro, and boy, you just the rapid fire comments and things. But first, let me go back to the non insightful stuff. So, what union are you in? Are you in Equity?
Yeah, so I'm on the National Council of Equity, and then I'm also a Martin Luther King County Labor Delegate for SAG-AFTRA. So I sit on the Labor Council here locally for SAG-AFTRA, which does not participate politically because we had two former members become president of the United States, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. And so they also represent broadcasters. So SAG-AFTRA does not engage in any politics because of that conflict of interest. But Equity does a little bit, mostly on the federal level. So we have a PAC, the Equity PAC. And then, yeah, mostly my work has been I was on the Broadway development lab renegotiation. So that national negotiating team, that was wild. We were on strike for 8 months, and then we just got a deal last month. So that was an amazing experience to collectively bargain with arts workers and to be the only person on that team representing the entire Western United States, which was also wild that it's so New
Wow.
York centric sometimes. But I used to live there. I lived in New York for 6 years. I loved it, but then there's nothing better than Seattle. I think it's the best place in the world. So I'd love to see that kind of culture reinvigorated out here.
Nice. Adam also was a New Yorker for, I think, about 6 years, actually. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I lived in Wenatchee, Washington for a few years when I was a kid. So
Oh, wow.
Yep.
A lot of good apples over there. Yeah, I feel like they say that to be a New Yorker, you have to be there for 10 years. So I always call myself a Seattle native and a half-baked New Yorker.
There you
Um,
go.
there
you
you go.
know, really, really feels good.
I mean, I certainly have to agree. I think Seattle is an awesome, beautiful city, even though I am so often distressed by how neoliberal, conservative, NIMBY it is for a place that has this reputation as being a progressive bastion. But once you're on the inside, it so is not. And knowing now that you're Equity, it makes sense why you asked if I was IATSE or not. I'm sure I've got that posted somewhere. But, so that's great. We are in, unions that work together anyway. And I think it's awesome that you were elected into leadership of your union. That's another thing I have considered running for. I have not. I'm not as active as I should be, quite frankly, but
Do it, Mark. What do you have to lose?
Well, you do have an opportunity to work for your union, but that's another.
I do. I have recently interviewed for and been offered a job for the union that I believe I think I will start working for the union here in a short period of time. It was
Congratulations. That's
well,
huge. That's
thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, it's I'm okay. I guess I'll just go ahead and make a reveal. Maybe I won't. I don't know what order these things are going to be released in because we talked about it in another episode as well. Yeah, no, I have applied and been offered a job to be a full-time labor organizer for IATSE for Local 15.
Which local? 15?
Local 15 here in Seattle.
Yeah. Amazing. Do you know
so-
Jeremy Oden?
I do. I know
Love.
him. Yeah.
The tallest man I think I've ever known.
he is tall. Tall and active in the inner workings of our local in ways I am not. A couple of years ago, I used to hold like tailgating before union meetings. I'd set up and bring my car to the labor temple and set up a tent and a barbecue and try to tailgate before the union meetings, partially to try to get people more engaged. And if I'm being honest with myself, it was to force myself to go to the meetings because they are long and dry and irritating at times. But if I was there for tailgating purposes, I would I would have to be there. I want to transition to some of the other things you said now. Quite the intro. I did not. Well, first of all, being inspired as a trans person, I am shocked. I read something online the other day that a majority of people have never met someone who's trans, and maybe it's because I'm in the theater world. I don't know. Maybe it's because I participate in sort of anarchist organizing, but I know so many trans people. First of all, anarchist organizing is 50% trans, it seems like. And I'm not even trying to exaggerate. I mean, literally, and the theater world.
Well, I think it's because queer and trans people often don't feel like they belong in a world in the reality we live in. And so in the theater, we construct new worlds to exist in. And then in, you know, more anarchist, one might say, or far left spaces, right? We are trying to actively tear down these systems that are oppressing us to then build this
Hmm.
new world that we could exist in. So I that makes sense to me. And I always tell, trans athletes that are struggling today, especially young trans athletes, if you want to be more accepted and love who you are, just come join the theater. The arts are much more fun than sports anyway.
And I would agree, way more accepting. When I was a kid and in high school and didn't feel like I really belonged, that was legitimate. When I found theater, was like, look, here's a group of people who just sort of accept me for who I am. I didn't have to feel like I had to do anything to fit in. Like we were all just sort of outcasts and weirdos, and but it was a very accepting community. So I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Join the theater.
Yeah, I would say in my experience, theater, film, and music, yeah, all of those areas you can find a lot of like-minded individuals if you don't subscribe to the things that are more popular in our society.
Yeah, and I think Seattle really has given up its soul a little bit in terms of the large tech development we've seen in SLU and these large tech corporations, which have created great opportunities for growth, but we have not done it in an intentional way where, Paul Giamatti was performing at Annex Theater in 1991 on Capitol Hill in a basement for 50 people. This
Hmm.
used to be the place for new arts to have incubation and to have grunge and to like explore the boundaries of what it means to be a storyteller or an artist. And now know that none of those artists can live in the city. So we need to create social and cooperative housing to inspire people to come back to Seattle and then keep them here and inspire these tech workers who are being forced to return to office to come explore who they are and be in community and not be frozen. So that's one of the big things I want to do. I mean, there's never been a creative economy mayor in the city of Seattle before. And so how can we find our own identity as a city instead of this kind of smorgasbord charcuterie of suburbia? That's what it feels like sometimes. And I'm ready for Seattle to invest back in its neighborhoods and become a whole city again.
Amen. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I live in the city. I mean, I live West Seattle, but it's still, within Seattle city limits. And uh, it's pricey. It's pricey out here. I've got a big-ish rental, right? I'm not a homeowner. I'll never be able to afford to own a home. Um, but I love that I can live in the city, and I am with my job insecurity. I didn't want to be forced out into the outskirts or the suburbs. I think people ought to be able to live here. We had Jeff Paul, I think, toward the end of last season from How's Our Neighbors
I love
on the
Jeff.
podcast. Um, a recent interview we had this season, we had Ty Reed on to talk about just all the organizing that she does. But How's Our Neighbors came up there as well. Um, yeah, we need. I was thrilled that we got not only got I-135 passed, but we got the funding mechanism passed as well. I'm excited to see how that works. I would love to add real public housing, like Section 9 public housing, to the mix. We had an organizer from New York City who founded and runs a group called Save Section 9 on early last year, um, and it was really educational for me. I think we should have more Section 9 housing out here as well. Um, yeah, these are important issues. So I'm excited. I'm excited to have you run. Frankly, someone who is not only aware of these issues, but on the right side, in my opinion, of some of these issues. Yeah.
Well, and outside of the Seattle perspective, because I live in Cleveland, one of the reasons why I moved away from New York was because I went there with this heightened, expectation that the artistic community I grew up wanting to be a part of still existed there.
Mm.
And I got there in 2012, And you could already just see that those people were being priced out. And a lot of the people that were coming into the city were not starting their own groups of artists like-minded in a goal. It was, I'm going to go work for Disney, or I'm going to go work for, one of the major corporations that was in town. And what I think Cleveland right now, and cities like Cleveland, are doing better than places like Seattle and New York in that endeavor, because they're some of the poorest cities in the country, right? Or Cleveland is the second poorest major city in the country. So it hasn't quite happened yet that things are completely outpriced for people here. But you can see every day that it's inching more and more towards that. And so it's creating a world where a place where you used to go to kind of live close together and work, on collective ideas, is going more and more away, because our cities are just not affordable for most people.
Yeah,
Um,
and if you look at Minneapolis and Austin, they did very intentional increases in the amount of supply in their housing
mhm.
surplus. And but I think for Seattle, we don't have as much land to just lean out and build upon. So we have to also intentionally incentivize or regulate that the affordable and middle housing that can be built to bridge from emergency shelter housing to potentially owning a home someday, or God forbid, luxury housing. Crazy. I don't think I'll ever experience what that is, other than just visiting friends, and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize this was your life." Um, so, yeah, I think we have to completely intentionally invest in what that looks like, and that comes from a mayoral heavy government, which is what Seattle has. Unlike Tacoma, which is a council heavy government. They have a city manager, they have other people executing the city. But the current mayor, there's 7 city unions that are suing because of a lack of ability to process payroll. Some people were getting double their pay, some people weren't getting paid for weeks. It's like actually crazy that we as a city can't even process payroll. So I think it's going to take someone with the ability to come in, understand technology, and really set up systems for success so that we have the best workers in our city government, and then we could attract potentially federal workers who are maybe looking to settle down somewhere outside of DC or elsewhere. Noah, we have all these scientists. We're going to lose a generation of scientists in the next couple months,
Mhm.
who are either going to retire or go into different fields, or go to the private sector. And I am surprised the mayor's office is not like pushing for more people to say, "Hey, come settle to Seattle. We'll relocate you. Like, we'll get you settled here." We should have the brightest minds working for our government, not just in the private sector.
There were let's just keep talking about this right now, because I think the word you used, and I think it's very important, is intentional. Like, we do have, I've not looked at the statistics, so please correct me if I'm wrong and you know better. But we have all these fucking glass towers downtown. Like, over the last 15 years, so many glass apartment towers have gone up, and they feel half empty. Like, I feel like there are thousands of high-rise units, skyscraper units downtown that are empty because they're owned by large corporate developers who can just afford to have them. And it feels like a policy choice to me. It feels like we could enact policy that, like, it's not rent control necessarily, but a vacancy tax, so to speak, that, hey, if you run a place and more than 10% of your units are empty, that once they're empty for, say, 6 months, we begin increasing the tax until you are taxed the asking price of whatever your vacant units are. And if you'd started doing that, I bet we'd start seeing some of those prices come down. Not
Yeah,
that I'm
it's a combination of a couple of things. Right now, we can't do a vacancy tax. It's illegal in state law, but we
Yeah.
could if the state law changed. So we have a supermajority in the legislature. They have their own budget crisis, but maybe if elected in the short session next year, we could pass an exemption for a vacancy tax. Um, Residential vacancy is only at about 7%, but that doesn't include pied a terres and like people who just buy property to hold it. Um, Commercial vacancies at 30%. So those office spaces, those high rises, they could be converted into micro studios. There's a problem with how the plumbing works, where you can't create individual bathrooms necessarily
Right.
in changing it, and it's more expensive. But in my opinion, the fact that we have so much space and only 16,000 people regionally who are homeless, which I think that number is low,
Oh,
to be
yeah.
honest, because you probably have families and single parents living in cars, RVs, or on the cusp of really living on the streets. I would estimate it's probably more like 20 to 30,000 people. Um, but 1 in 12 people you meet on the street is a millionaire in Seattle. We're one of the
Mm.
richest cities in the history of humankind. We can tax our people and tax our corporations to an extent where we're not going to ruin the economy. These are not tariffs, these are taxes. Um, and hopefully actually invest in progressive revenue. We haven't really had that conversation ever. Our last progressive mayor was Mike McGinn, and that was 4 mayors ago. Um, so I want to see huge change in Seattle, and I think I'm the person to do it.
And
Are we?
even Adam,
Sorry.
you go. You
I was
go.
just curious because I don't know as much about Seattle as I do like a place like New York because I still kind of keep an eye out. I have friends and stuff there. But I did see last year, towards the end of the year, an article that they were saying that all these banks have invested money in commercial buildings in New York City, that they already kind of said, oh, we're going to make this amount of profit from it because of X amount of rent that we are definitely going to get. But then because of the changes from COVID, they were now not able to guarantee that. And they were talking about it might create like a financial crisis. But instead, a big thing that the banks have been doing is going in and reinvesting those buildings into residential buildings, not thinking at all about how it's going to be a bunch of empty apartments because you're not going to be able to afford to live there. Is that something that's going on in Seattle where they're changing commercial buildings into residential buildings as well?
Not yet. I mean, they're looking at it. The permitting process was streamlined just for downtown properties. Um, yeah,
There are actual engineering challenges with that. Like
yeah,
I
I
think
just had a larger big picture thought that came to my mind, which was that no one really knows what the future will hold in the next 5 years. And so to plan on those kind of rents to come through at this time, I don't think is wise for those banks. They're trying to pivot. Um,
Yep.
but also they're making a lot of money on other mortgages and other things. So I'm like, you know, um, perhaps we could have not foreign entities and other corporations own single family homes and residential properties. I think there's a lot of work we could do in Seattle, but right now it's not currently happening, is my understanding.
Got it.
yeah. And I think, Rye talked about like the plumbing issues. Like when you build a commercial property, bathrooms are in certain locations and they're stacked vertically usually, and there's not as many bathrooms required for an office building as you would need to have for like residences, right?
Right.
You'd have to like tear out everything and redo it, and skyscrapers have real specific engineering challenges involved in a lot of that stuff. And so it's not that it can't happen, it's just a difficult task, I think.
Right.
Or
And
we
I
could
don't
lean into a new
necessarily.
design, like it's Centre Pompidou, where it has all the pipes on the outside of the building,
Oh
like
yeah.
the museum in Paris. Like,
And
why not? Let's think outside the box.
I don't
There you go.
necessarily think that their goal is going to be a good one for most people because, again, in a place like New York, they're going to be charging crazy rent prices for those apartments. So they're not building anything that's affordable, and then they're turning things that were commercial now into residential, and those won't be affordable either. So numbers like 7% are going to go up a lot higher if they build a bunch of stuff that most people can't get into anyway.
Well,
Right.
but the not affordable, that's a policy choice. And so we've
Yes.
got some challenges here. I knew rent control was illegal through state law. I didn't realize that vacancy taxes were also illegal from state law. But laws can be changed. Um, I'm a little shocked that our residential vacancy is only at 7% because
I think that's just downtown, but there's a lot of office buildings downtown.
there is a lot of office buildings downtown, and like, but I work in the Denny Triangle currently, and there are just a lot of towers now. Like, there is right around Cornish, there are a half dozen glass towers that are mostly residents. And when you look at those balconies at night, it feels like half of them or
Well,
more
yeah,
are
and
not lit up.
those could just be pied à terres where they're just being held empty for investment properties.
Right.
Like, so I'm sure like the empty rate is probably a lot higher than vacancy because they're still not considered vacant if someone owns them, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Oh, fucking tricky bastards. And it doesn't help that Seattle is like through code so much, like, what is it, 75% of Seattle is single family homes, and we can't have apartments and multi units in just so much of the city. It's crazy how much of the city is just like single family house neighborhoods without.
This is why the comp plan is so important. And even the mayor's plan doesn't go far enough. And then the city council is going to now roll back that plan even further, likely, I would think, in the next 2 months. But they're coming up against state law deadlines where they're going to be in big trouble for not meeting benchmarks required under RCW. So um, it's going to be a crazy year. That's all I got to say.
Well, and this current city council is not afraid to just ignore the law and or break the law, as indicated by refusing to put the social housing measure on the ballot and in time. And um, so it would not surprise me they come across those deadlines and just ignore them, because there's so few consequences for either the wealthy or the politicians. Rye, talk to us some. Let's get some more detail. Because we've been just sort of chatting. Talk to me more. You said earlier you think you're the person to make some of these changes. Talk to me about some of your specific plans. Like, if you were mayor, what are some of the things you intend to do? You've talked about how Seattle is a mayor heavy um, governance structure, essentially, and our mayor does have an awful lot of power. Um, what are some of the specific policy proposals and tasks you want to undertake?
Yeah, I mean, as a Seattle native, I stand on the shoulders of my grandparents. My grandfather, Marvin, he was Teamsters 117 and spent 35 years filleting fish in Booth Fisheries in Ballard in downtown Seattle. My grandmother, Luella, she was the first woman to graduate with an aeronautical engineering degree from UW in 1951. Um, so I think I really want to make a difference in the city that I grew up in and love. For me, the top issue is housing. I remember when Ed Murray made a state about homelessness, and there was a crisis and a 10-year plan, and now it's been over 10 years, and it's just gotten worse. So
Way worse.
um, what we know is that what we've been doing is not working, and the
Hmm.
definition of insanity is to continue doing that and expecting different results. And so I think we need a big overhaul of how we can have an efficient, progressive government that actually is rooted in what the people want to see. So housing is my number one thing. I want to create a thousand units of shelter emergency housing in the first 100 days. There are tiny homes and land, city land, county land that we can do this. Second, I want to expand the Office of Labor Standards to be able to meet the needs of our unions and our working people, despite the NLRB being destroyed at the federal level. And PERC at the state level is only for public employees. So, how can we create a mechanism to protect workers and have specific regulations in the Office of Labor Standards, which historically has been reactive to complaints, but could be proactive, investigating work sites, walking into Amazon, talking to workers, um, creating space for the government to say, hey, maybe this is not okay, that this is not a safe working environment for our people. Third, I want to expand the care team, which is the alternative to the police. It's a whole separate department, but does not have autonomy from the police. Specifically, I think when someone calls 911, that people in Seattle should have the choice of who responds to that emergency because you're in the context of that emergency. So investing in apprenticeship programs for mental health practitioners, social workers, and then establishing an overdose prevention center right next to City Hall in that giant pit that's been sitting there and is now city land, due to my understanding of STCI permits. Finally, I want to expand childcare reform. So right now, you can't build childcare centers in about 90% of the city because of land use zoning regulations. So I would love to take some of these empty floors in these high rises at a 30% office vacancy, maybe make a childcare center on the third floor that's totally up to code and able to house kids so that parents could thrive in 2025, so that they could go see a play and then have a date night and then go pick up their kids after 2 hours. So really innovating what it means to support working families in 2025. And I think either creating a new tax benefit district or investing in a capital gains to support that would be a huge priority of me, because the average cost for a working family is about $4,000 a month for childcare in the city of Seattle. And what it's done is it's created this neo-feudalistic system where femme or female presenting people have to give up their dreams or their careers because it's more economic to stay home, while the males typically go work their high paid tech jobs in the city. So right now the system isn't working. It could work, and I think it's just going to take a little bit of shifting where we all, the richest among us, pay a little bit more of their fair share to create a beautiful city, and that's what I want Seattle to be.
Great, thank you. You said a lot of things. I mean, other than getting rid of the pit, you can't get rid of the pit.
Mm.
That's near and dear to my heart. This big empty pit in the middle of downtown Pioneer Square down there.
Right, that
Um,
dirt and those puddles, it's a national treasure. It's a national treasure.
um, yeah, you said a lot of things that lots of love from me. The care team, what community assisted response and engagement, something like that.
Yeah.
But I never see them. Like I do, participate in
Oh, there's
downtown.
only 25 people. It's only 25 people right now.
Well, that's why we never see them, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I participate in downtown community hours. Formerly something that was started by Stop the Sweeps. Doing meal service. I'm not there weekly. I should be, but I'm not there weekly. I have other things I also try to do. When I see crisis response, like the other day, maybe a month ago, we had an ambulance show up for someone who was in having an issue across the street down there in Pioneer Square, and we were talking like, it's amazing. Look, there's no cops, just an ambulance showed up. That's great, And then 5 minutes later, suddenly three cop cars are there anyway. So yeah, I think we absolutely need some more non-police alternatives. I think that's a super important issue. Obviously, housing is important. It has, as you noted, over a decade since it was declared an emergency, and it is rough out there. And we are just criminalizing it more and more, and extracting from public third places for private profit and opulence. How do we get there? I know you mentioned we got city-owned property for sure. You mentioned tiny homes, and I absolutely want to see more like Nicholsville's and tiny home villages. I don't know the numbers in Seattle. I know nationwide that there are more vacant units than there are unhoused people, and is eminent domain something a mayor can exert? Would you have the power to claim vacant units through an eminent domain and turn them over, or make them community land trusts? Or is that, I'm just non-research thinking outside the box, like what can be done right away.
Yeah, eminent domain, I think, would create a large expensive lawsuit, and end up going to like probably the state Supreme Court or worse, up higher. So, um, I want to hold on to hope. I want to choose passionate resistance right now. I want to choose a refusal of being afraid of what's coming, because I think it's going to be really bad. We are entering into fascism, and they're taking out the arts at Kennedy Center. My friend's show was removed. They're attacking our media, adding tariffs to ruin our economy so they can militarize the country. This is it. We're in it. And the choice is to ostrich and put your head in the sand, or to wake up and to get involved and become a PCO, or join a party, or join your union, or just even show up to a protest. That's the first way to understand how to build this tool of bravery, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And I don't really give a shit what people think about me. I don't really, the average age in Seattle is 34 years old. So I'm representative of the average voter in the city. However, young people feel that the world's going to end, because it is. Um, our time is up on the climate clock, right? I talk to young people and they're like, "Why should I care? I don't have any control. I can't change anything. I was just born into this mess." And the older generation thinks, "Oh, I can't control anything because it's not going to affect me. So why should I care?" Um, and I think we have to meet somewhere in the middle where apathy is reignited with a common cause to take care of each other. And that's what I hope to do. And I think conversation by conversation, we can get it done. But it's going to take real strong leadership and real compassion and empathy for the city of Seattle, which I grew up in and has changed a lot since I was a kiddo. Um, but fascism has always been stopped by youth and union movements. And so I think it's going to take that next generation of change to do it. And that's what I'm here for.
I want to Okay, let me preface by saying I do not disagree with you. I have said on this show repeatedly that if we organize and if we get involved and if we fight, we can change the system. We can fight back. If we couldn't, they wouldn't spend so much time and money to tear us down and to leave us afraid and diffused and distracted. They know we can beat them and they're afraid of that. So I want to preface what may start sounding like negative defeatist comments by saying I agree with you 100%. And I mean, and it's going to be a long road. Like I don't want this to be defeatist at all. I want this show to be one of hope and to be one of a call to action and organizing. The question always just becomes to me, what are the tactics and how do we get there? And I am often more extreme than some people, and deliberately so, frankly. I do not believe I've sat at the union negotiating table many times, and the first time I tried to negotiate in a very reasonable fashion, me and some of my friends that were in the bargaining unit, we spent an inordinate amount of time like, well, we want this, but if we ask for that, then they're going to say this, and we came up with a proposal that we thought was so reasonable and such a compromise that management would just say yes. But that was not what management did. Management came back wanting to cut our benefits and cut our hour guarantees and just take everything away. And I learned the hard way that compromise happens by asking big asks, asking for a lot. That if you do not have people that are willing to take the extreme positions, that you never get to the incremental compromise. And I think one of the huge fucking failures of Democrats is that they only fight for the incremental, that is their opening fucking tactic. And thus we have continued to slide to the right for generations now. And so I'm curious about your decision. I mean, the mayor is in Seattle. It's a nonpartisan position. City council are nonpartisan positions. I know that at one point you were a Green Party member. I don't know if you're still a dues paying member of the Green Party or not. But I do know that when talking about the state house, you said we have a supermajority. You've talked about people going and getting involved by being a PCO, which is an elected major party position. So in this time where, in my opinion, Democrats are half the reason that we're in the place we're at, and they are part of the problem protecting the system. And here in Seattle, even the most conservative neoliberals identify as Democrats. Why Democrat, right? Why Democrat?
Yeah. Well, I was pretty involved with the 43rd Executive Board, and I made a lot of relationships and connections there. I've also been to the DSA National Convention as a delegate. I've also been hurt by the Democratic Party, where I was calling for a ceasefire last year, and the Biden administration single-handedly, the campaign, excuse me, not the administration, single-handedly removed me from consideration for a national delegate position on the ballot because of my views, because they didn't want to hear opposing viewpoints.
Right.
I believe that we can remake the system. I believe in a big tent party or other parties around that tent. Um, I am still involved with the Green Party um, because I align on climate change issues specifically. I think that's really important. I really think that's going to be, in terms of those key core tenets of what the Party stands for. I resonated with that the first time I ran. I do think we are locked in a two-party shit show, for a lack of a better word. And so it's hard for me to believe that unless there's real disruption, that we can have multiple parties, but I think we could. And I think real disruption might be coming, whether we like it or not, because the more inequity we have, we're at the same, if not higher, than what the French Revolution was. So what's it going to take? What's it going to take to have those sparks? Archduke Ferdinand was shot. That's like considered a precipice, a sparking moment in history. And we're living in history right now. So what is it going to take for that change to happen? I'm watching Gavin Newsom actively embrace conservative people and people who I have conservative Republicans in my family. But these are people on the fringe of the right that I feel. And so attacking or changing your views on trans people or changing your views on just to meet the moment of what's convenient for you as a candidate is despicable to me. Um, but I think, if you look at the electorate, 78% of Seattle voted for Kamala Harris. 8% voted for Trump. And then the rest is Jill Stein, other people. So I think to get elected in Seattle, everyone calls themselves a Democrat, but actually looking through the lens at that person and relating to that person is going to be key. Versus some of these dinos, that we both old and Democrats in name only that we see, like the Chuck Schumers of the world. It's time to let go of power and give it to the next generation, and let new people step up. I mean, you were seeing AOC lead, Bernie lead. These are people I look up to, and I hope to make a difference just as much as I think they have made. And I remember caucusing for Bernie for the first time back in 2015, I believe. And I was like, wow, this person is different. Why is this person different? Why is he speaking to things that everyone else seems to be afraid to speak to? It doesn't feel like talking points, right? Obama was a great orator. He could inspire people with his words. And he was a great leader, but we don't have any of that bench anymore, it seems, on the Dems side of things. So yeah, the mayoral race is nonpartisan, which is both good and bad. For me, I just want to stand for who I am authentically, despite whatever party may or may not be present, and lean into that uncertainty and that scariness of what it means to grow as a city and become what Seattle needs to be in the future.
I struggle, and I'm not gonna let go of this whole Democrat thing quite yet. I will let it go during this interview, but not quite yet, because I really I When AOC got elected, I was sort of all in with her. When Obama got elected, I loved Obama. He ran on a true progressive platform, hope and change, and yes, we can. But then no, he fucking didn't. He acquiesced to the conservatives like right away. AOC, tears on the House floor, irregardless, still was wearing the aviator shades with Biden and pushing people that direction. Bernie came out and endorsed Biden way before he had to, just like the international leadership of my union, as well as the AFL-CIO, way before they fucking had to. I feel these people are compromised. I feel like they are betrayers of the working class. The reason I'm a member of CREW, the Caucus of Rank and File Entertainment Workers, is I see the leadership at the international level of my union in bed with Democrats, and I see Democrats as completely compromised by big money. And I hear, yeah, in Seattle, everyone calls himself a Democrat. I was Jason Call, who ran for Congress 3 times in Washington 02 before he stepped up as Jill Stein's campaign manager. I had a conversation with him during his second run and asked why he was running as a Democrat. And he said, well, yeah, and if you want to win, you have to have a D or R after your name. And when he ran green the third time, I stepped up and volunteered and ended up as his campaign manager. And I have to admit, he did an order of magnitude better when he was running as a Democrat compared to the votes he got as a Green Party member. So I struggle with this. I struggle with this because I do not believe we can reform the Democratic Party. I think they are completely compromised by big money. And I think that anyone who gets involved in that machine, once they start getting any measure of success, they will either have their careers broken or they will become the sheepdogs that I'm seeing Sanders and AOC be right now. I agree with you that we're stuck in this 2-party system right now, but I don't think it has to be those 2 fucking parties. I think that as long as people are willing to step up and vote their values instead of voting for the lesser evil, I feel strong with that. If you're voting for the lesser evil, you're still voting for evil. And I don't have the answer. I don't have the path, and you don't have to make the choice because it's a nonpartisan race, right? But it pings me heavy, and I don't have the answer. But I personally don't believe we can reform the Democrats. And I'm not a Green Party cheerleader. I'm a Green Party member now. But I think they've got a lot of problems. I'm not convinced the Green Party is the answer at all. I don't actually see a party out there that I think has the current capacity or ability to challenge the system, not just because they're all small, but I just don't think anyone has stumbled on the right mix yet. I don't think anyone has found the path forward. But boy, it is really, I don't think the Democrats are it. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't be running as your preferred Democrat, because I think maybe Jason was right. Maybe you have to have it. And you are absolutely right. In Seattle, that's how people identify. Okay.
Adam, how do you feel about it all? I'm curious.
Yeah, Adam.
You've been a little too quiet over there in that corner. I'm just kidding.
Well, I gotta let Mark talk. You know, his name's on the show. Yeah, I mean, I've sat here through almost 50 episodes with Mark, and I've known him for almost 20 years or so. You know, I definitely have heard this speech quite a bit. I don't think I've ever fully bought into it. And I think that's because even just sitting here now thinking about what might not work for me is that goes back to that direct action or electoral action kind of concept. And if you sit and think that a party is not reformable, then what did Donald Trump do to the Republicans? I don't think in any way they resemble the Republicans that I grew up with or that my parents used to champion or still do, frankly, which is very sad. But I think that certainly that side of the aisle is maybe a little more prone to stick with what they've got and not be as critical of it. And Democrats, I think, have always been too quick to abandon and criticize and move on rather than sticking with and trying to change what isn't working. Um,
Mm,
and I'm not certain that we have enough time to form another party and to get traction with that. I'm not certain that there's anyone that would join that party that would give enough national credibility that there could be a third party that would emerge. I would love there to be multiple parties, but I think right now and kind of where we are historically, it makes more sense to me still to try and change what we've got. And I think there's a lot of people on the Democrat side that are hurt and feel betrayed by Democrats, and
Rightfully
so
so.
it fractions us even more. It fractures us even more into something that is not possible to gain our power back. And
yeah,
I do
you're
think
you,
that the last point, I do think the Democrats are to blame. I mean, Bernie Sanders was that chance, and they completely crushed him. And for whatever reason, Bernie, kept playing the game and didn't try to go third party and didn't try to change anything, stuck with the Democrats. But at the end of the day, the Republicans embraced Trump and tried to, they said, okay, we're going to embrace him publicly and we're going to take the power that he brings to us and we're going to try to control him. And that didn't work. And so now they're very much just beholden to whatever he wants to do. And there could have been a similar outcome on the Democrat side if they had just not crushed Bernie and said, no, we're not going to listen to that. The Democrats are a four-letter word in a lot of households in this country, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. They need a makeover. But the idea that any Green Party was going to take hold, it would have taken hold decades ago. So I don't know. It's one of those things we're always discussing on in this show. But I do agree with something that you mentioned, which is that a lot of people position themselves, like a Gavin Newsom or whatever, they position themselves to be able to gain power by saying, oh, I'm a part of this thing. But then whenever it's politically more advantageous for them to switch, they're going to do that. And that's where authenticity really matters. Donald Trump is a horrible piece of shit and just a psychopathic person in a lot of ways, but he's never changed from what he is. And Democrats often have too many people that flip flop back and forth of what they're really going to stand for and what they're going to fight for.
yeah,
And it
you,
needs
you
to change.
reminded me of this. There's this quote that I don't know who said it, but it resonates with me a lot, which is that Republicans have no principles, but Democrats have no spine, so we end up somewhere in the middle. It's
Yeah.
like crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
I think there's still a chance to demand more. And I think right now the Democrats are once again losing the point. It's like, okay, we lost to Trump because we weren't to the right enough. I'm so sick and tired of that narrative being what always gets through. It's like, well, if we just placated more to the right because they believe we live in a much more conservative country. But with their
No, yeah.
actions, they push us more and more right every day when we could easily be more left leaning. I think people are a lot more left leaning than they want to admit a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I
the
studied this in my master's
left's not
program.
left.
There's this like hard middle where you can't carve out any more from the middle in terms of
Right.
these swing votes. But if you go too right, you lose the left. And so that's what I think we saw from Kamala embracing billionaires and if what felt like an abandonment of the working class, which I don't think was her fault. I think it was her consultants giving bad advice that were succubus for eating off of the money that was rolling into that campaign because the house was rolling down the hill in an avalanche,
And it was
and
also
they
the third straight election where to me, we were kind of forced who we should vote for. It wasn't a
I would rather
process of,
see like
go ahead.
sorry.
No, no,
No,
please, please.
I'm having my brain's firing
No,
on some
you're our guest,
mechanisms.
please. Yeah, yeah.
No, I was just thinking that if we had forced primaries every year, no matter if the incumbent was running or not, so that we have to allow for a primary for both parties, the whole thing could be avoided, because Biden said he wasn't going to run, and he did, and then he wasn't
Mhm.
ready, and so it's just we've created our own problems. But I can't live in a world where I don't think that can be fixed, and I
Yeah.
think that part of that is look at how much change has happened in the last 100 years of this country. We're moving in the right direction, macro. Micro, we're in a bad time.
Right.
So in the next 40 years, we could go into that macro could get worse, right?
Right.
But I have to believe that if we give a shit, that we will show up and change the trajectory. And I think you're seeing these town halls, and you're seeing people who are regretting, like the number one Google search was, how do I change my vote in November?
Yep.
Good
People
luck.
regretted it because they didn't want to vote for a woman of color, or they didn't believe her, or
Right.
whatever it is. And I voted for Kamala, but whatever it is,
It was
we've
also,
made our bed.
did Biden drop out? I mean, like, there's so many people that have checked out of the news and checked out of what really matters, and they're only peeking into something last minute to make a decision, and that's not an informed decision.
Right.
But I do think I had a thought that is probably already gone, but we live in a world where, like somebody like Bernie Sanders, if he hadn't endorsed Hillary, if he had said, no, this has been ridiculous, if I haven't gotten the support from the Democrats the way that I should, I clearly have a larger movement behind me. I'm going to take that power. I'm going to use it, in a way that makes you beg for me to come back, rather than just always capitulating to what he perceives or others perceive. It just reminds me, it's maybe not the best analogy, but it reminds me of Caesar. Like, Caesar didn't show up with all of his the people that rallied behind him and marched with him and said, okay, well, now that I have the Senate agreeing with me, I don't need any of you anymore. Like, it's, if you're going to build a huge movement like that, you need to keep it, and then you need to threaten the current system and power of, like, if you don't do what I'm asking you to do, you're not going to get any of the support that I have. And we could go there again, but we're such a populist country. Like, so the fact that Bernie was ever championed, you hear people all the time like, is Oprah going to run? Is The Rock going to run? Like, because they just think that's a faster way to get groups of people to get behind what they want to do. And
Mm.
we're really void of someone to choose. I always hear, oh, Gavin Newsom would be a great choice. It's like, I don't see the rest of the country voting for Gavin Newsom.
And then I'm gonna let go of the whole Democrat discussion today, but I'm gonna say I don't disagree with you, Adam, about the Bernie thing, that if he had taken it a different way until they begged him to come back. But I point out that you don't do that by being on their side. Like, the way he could have done that was
Right.
the whole dirty break, forming a different party.
Yep.
Like, the only way, and
Agree with that.
and to clarify, like, it's not that I think the Democrats can't be reformed. The Democrats have very effectively been reformed by billionaires and
True.
big money and corporations. What I say is, we poor, working, progressive people cannot reform them. The only way
Mm.
we can change them is by denying them our vote and then voting our true values. And I come back to union negotiating, that unless you are willing to do the hard asks, you'll never get the incremental change forward. If you start with the incremental ask, you get the incremental change to the right. And that's
I guess my difference in opinion, which I respect your opinion too, is that it feels like we're on a ship that's going down, right? And maybe there's one issue in the boiler room that it's going to take 10,000 people to get in there to get it done in a fast enough way to save the ship. And abandoning ship feels like that's going to take longer or have less value. I do believe that we can change it from the inside with enough people power, because that I've seen that in history. But we're gonna have to rise up, to use your podcast name. We're gonna have to actually. Although I love an RYSE, just saying. We're actually gonna have to we're gonna have to really get that ship to port and fix it, or let it go down and build a new ship. That's where we're at. But I just disagree. I think we can change it from the inside, and that's going to be becoming a really working class party again, giving people trust in the actual candidates that the party puts forward, and building mechanisms that are actually democratic. The way that the Democratic Party decides things is not democratic. We're appointing, it's more of a republic. We're appointing people to represent a demographic, which then appoint another person to represent a demographic, and it coalesces around this group think about this culture that we want to be liked and be happy in. And then suddenly that group think is not creating any democracy for the people representing them. So I agree with you that there is a problem, but I think my disagreement is in the action, and I think that can also come from pressure from the outside too. But maybe I just want to be more of like an internal spy to like really make the change. But we'll see. I mean, we no one knows the answers. Like you said, I don't know the answers, but goddamn, I'm gonna try.
If I
Yeah.
had the answers, I would be doing them already. But I
Right.
respect your optimism and effort, and I will remain as much outside pressure as I can be. But I'm not gonna. It's and I while I don't feel. I'm not going to say a proclamation like I don't feel I could ever vote for a Democrat for federal office again, for national office again. Um, I obviously do vote for people who identify as Democrats when it gets to local and state races, because the more local the race, the more it's directly impacting my life, the more the policies those people are able to enact is going to benefit me, my family, my community, my friends, this city we live in. So it's certainly not going to stop me from casting my vote from you or some other candidate who truly has the best interests of poor working people and progressive policies behind them. It hasn't in the past. It won't now. Like I can't vote for a Bruce Harrell. I can't vote for. I couldn't vote for Rob Saka shit, but I can vote for. I can vote for people who have some real progressive policies.
Well, I hope to earn your vote, Mark.
Well, I am excited by your platform. We've been going, looks like about an hour, and I want to respect your time. And I feel like too much of this right now has been me and my anti-democratic soapbox. So talk some more about your campaign if you could. Talk about how people can get involved. Talk about what you see as your path forward, and give us some more of your policy and positions and plans, because I feel I was inspired by the things you were talking about before, and I want to hear more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all centered around working families, how we can build up Seattle to be a place that's thrivable and livable today. Also, it's all underpinned by climate change. I'm the co-executive director of Sustainable Seattle, which is a $2.2 million nonprofit. I run that nonprofit. And so the environmental justice work that I do in South Seattle and beyond, I want to do from the mayor's office. I saw Bruce Harrell. Um, defund the Green New Deal initiative by 50% in this last budget cycle by raiding jumpstart funds. So that's unacceptable to me. I want to be
Mhm.
living in Seattle in the next 50 years. What's Seattle going to look like then after the big one happens, after, all of these natural disasters, after we have mass migrations and refugees moving northward from California to Oregon, Oregon to Seattle, Seattle to Canada, our 51st state. Just kidding. I would never. A Cascadia all the way though. Once if it does fall apart,
Man.
all the way. Um, so yeah, I really want to see Seattle be a beacon of climate resiliency in this
Hmm.
century because that's where we're headed. And we have to build that now. We cannot wait on what that looks like. Also, we're hosting the World Cup, and the World Cup was in Qatar and queer people were murdered. And so to have a trans mayor at the World Cup on a international stage and represent or make some sort of action, I think that would be so powerful, um, for a world that's becoming more and more less friendly to the LGBTQ community. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to see. Um, I know that a lot of people are tuned out, so it's just having to go onto podcasts like these, breaking through the noise. We need 220 more donations to qualify. So if people go to the website, which is armstrongforall.com/donate, will take you right to the donation page. You just give $10 if you're a Seattle voter. Although, Adam, you're welcome to donate too if you want. But we need 220 Seattle voters. It's a 600 donation qualification amount. So once we hit that, then we have a chance. And we have $50,000 people have already sent into our campaign through the Public Financing Democracy Voucher Program. So if people want to, there's my business phone line, the email for our team of 6 is already on there. You can reach out to us and we're happy to help. But right now it's just me. I've already called over 1,000 people. We start door knocking this next month with our campaign manager coming on this week. And I love talking to people. I love people. I love talking to voters. I don't agree with everyone on everything, but what I do agree on is that we have to do something. And so I'm going to show up as my authentic self, and hopefully that resonates with people because I think people want to see someone who's just being honest. That's my
Amen.
pitch. That's what I got for you.
I love it. I don't want to take more time, and it seems like a great place to end. And at the same time, I want to dig more into like what specific things as mayor you can do. How much of the money can you direct? How do you refund a lot of these things? And I know that if I start asking specific questions, I will sort of reveal my ignorance. I'm so impressed by those of you who run for office. How much you have to learn, how granular a lot of these policies and details are. I'm not even sure, how you like it. It must take a special, not only brilliant sort of mind, but just the focus to the attention, focus to detail. Like a lot of these policies, they when you talk about, not when you personally talk about them, when people talk about them, they just sound like, well, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know how that impacts things, but those are the things that do impact people's lives. Like it is, I, like a lot of Americans, think in sort of these broad strokes and big policies and not about the real granular things. Um,
Mm.
and I don't know how to correct that in myself. I'm part of it. I'm trying by talking to people like you and other candidates who have to get into the weeds that way, um, so that they are prepared and so that they know what's even happening for real. VoteRye.us, www.voteRye.us. That looks like that's not the same website. Sorry, I'm looking at a website.
We have 2 websites. So one is the main website, Armstrong for All, and the second one, it goes to a link tree for organizing so that we can get people to click quick links. But they both go to the same place.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I distracted myself there. So yeah, that sounds like, if you have any other specifics you want to share, great. Otherwise, I'm going to, make sure Adam runs the various banners. We will absolutely put the /donate link in the episode as we release it, back in the details. The armstrongforall.com/donate to make a qualifying donation if you are a Seattle voter. I will, as we finish this podcast, you'll need 219 because you'll for sure get one from me.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I want to see someone in office. Bruce Harrell, the Harrell Horror Show has to end. And I'm excited to have people who have real ideas and it sounds like you've got real experience. I think your union leadership experience, running the nonprofit experience. Um, these are things I don't have. If I were to choose to run to office, I'd just be some loudmouthed Yahoo who
And we
doesn't
need
really.
loudmouth yahoos. We need them on commissions. We need them in meetings. And you're still a constituent. I mean, yeah, for me, my, I guess, final thing I would say would just kind of like end it in gratitude because I feel like, we take these spaces sometimes for granted in a world that's ever changing. So, um, yeah, I just really appreciate the time today. I feel like this was great. And if you can get friends, or Adam, if you know people in Seattle or just random people on social media, just ask them for $10. I'm gonna start like just
We'll do.
attacking people on the streets just as they're leaving Starbucks. Um, and I'm like, first of all, that Starbucks cup you have right there, that's union busting. Second, I'm running for mayor. So no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, totally. No, I really appreciate the time. I think this has been great. And the conversation's been good. And these are the conversations that Democrats should lean into uncomfortability to have right now because the party's gotta do it something different. People do not trust. Um,
Mm-mm.
and do I have all the answers? No, but I'm willing to have the conversation. And that's what matters.
Well, I so appreciate that you're willing to try to change things both in the Democratic Party and in our city, and in our communities. I love that you're willing to have the conversation. I encourage my listeners, uh, armstrongforall.com/donate. Follow Rye on the socials. It's at Rye on the Rise, both with a Y. So if Rye was doing our podcast, it'd be Rise Up RYSE. So I wish I
That
had.
was pretty good, right? I'm funny sometimes.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
got
know.
it. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, follow Rye and donate and volunteer. I would say if you've got the capacity, volunteering is so important. Be willing to talk with your friends, your neighbors, be willing to knock those doors, make the phone calls, do the text banking. um, I will offer, if I don't know what you and your campaign has. I've got tables that I use for various meal service stuff in the back of my car all the time. I've got a little sound system. If you want to, my knees are not good enough right now for door knocking, but if you want to set up a tabling somewhere, I'll provide a sound system, a table, and a microphone, and so we can accost passerbys and get them to come sign petitions. You can still do hard petitions for the democracy dollars. Yeah, yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. Um, and donate if you're in Seattle. We have semi-publicly funded elections. Donate your democracy dollars to Rye Armstrong.
Love it. Maybe we should start doing good old stump Q&As like the olden days. We'll get a giant wooden stump and put it in Pike Place Market and start talking to people.
There you
I
go.
think
That
that's the way
was
we're going to have to engage.
I
I
think
I
getting out there is a good idea. Yeah.
I think that if I were to run for office, that'd be almost my only method of campaigning right now because my knees are so bad. Is just to set
Mm.
up a table and have a microphone and be a loudmouth, yell at people about what I think is wrong and how to fix it. Um, and Rye, I appreciate you coming on the show to talk about what you think is wrong and how you want to fix it. I super appreciate it. Um, Thank you for your time. I'm going to wrap this up. Adam, thank you as always for joining me in this, even though we don't always agree on how to fix things. I agree with Rye. I think that the conversations are important. We have to
Yeah.
be able to talk with each other.
The criteria of our show isn't that we always are in agreement. So that's like it's not an absolute. But
Um,
If it
like you
was,
said,
I'd be
right?
scared.
Right. But like you said, right, these are the kind of conversations and just hashing out things as like-minded individuals, well, no matter what you're going to call yourself. We're people that live in this country, and I think that we're obviously more in line with what we believe than and there's very little disagreement there overall. So it's just about finding nuance. So we really appreciate you joining us today for that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week.
Some answers, a little bit of truth. Some answers, a little bit of truth. Some answers, a little bit of truth. A little bit of truth. A little bit of truth. Oh, dig deeper. Keep looking for the proof. Dig deeper. Keep looking for the proof. Dig deeper. Keep looking for the proof. Keep looking for the proof. Keep looking for the proof. Oh, some answers. Some answers.